Hello and welcome to myfinancesteacher.org. In this video we're going to have a look at two assets. We're going to look at S&P 500 and crude oil. I think they're interesting enough at the moment, so I want to share my opinion on them with you. But before I do that, you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel and stay tuned. Now, as I mentioned a few weeks ago already, our target for this bounce up in S&P 500 was this recent low that we saw in the end of February and this retest of the 50-day moving average. A couple of days ago, S&P 500 did reach this target, and I'm happy to report to you guys that my stop loss on SPY, the vehicle I used to get into S&P 500, did trigger at 283 on the 20th of April. And the current price of SPY is 273. So far so good. And of course, I share all of my opinion and my strategies with you. As you know, we talked about my strategy and my stop loss that had not triggered at that time yet on the 18th of April on my website. That's myfinancesteacher.org. So if you want to get timely updates that might help you with your decisions, although this is not investment advice, I suggest you join the members list at myfinancesteacher.org. Now, what do I expect on S&P 500? Given that the ongoing bounce has been going on for nearly a month or 29 days, we probably have already passed the peak of this short-term daily cycle a couple of days ago here on the 17th of April. So for the rest of the short-term daily cycle, which usually lasts for about a couple of months for S&P 500, I expect S&P 500 to probably slide down. Clearly, we can get some bounces on the way, but I personally would only become interested in the general stock market if I see some more desperation. At the moment, everyone is getting excited about this 1 month long bounce up. I might also have a look at technicals if we say bounce up from that recent low at the beginning of April. And if S&P 500 pokes through the lower range of the Bollinger Bands and turns up from that, that might tell me in future that the second daily cycle of an ongoing intermediate cycle in S&P 500 is starting, and at that time I will share my opinion and strategy with you. However, I'm afraid that the ongoing intermediate cycle in S&P 500 is not really going to give us any amazing gains, because with the economy being shut down once the quarterly reports come out, the markets will clearly see that they're abysmal, and that can lead to a significant drop in the ongoing intermediate cycle. That's over the next several months. And whether the drop will bring us a lower low compared to what we saw at the end of March or not, we'll have to see about that later. So to summarize, in the part of the portfolio which I allocate for the general stock market, I am completely in cash since the 20th of April. Now moving on to oil, I posted what I think is a very interesting update on crude oil yesterday on my website. Again, if you want to see timely updates, join us at myfinancesteacher.org. But a brief teaser for you watching this on my YouTube channel. We see a lot of pain in crude oil. This is actually USO chart. And over the last couple of days, we see unprecedented huge volumes on USO. This might be telling us of the investors finally just panicking and getting out at whatever levels they can. And that is usually an indication of blood flowing on the streets. That is usually when you want to get into the markets. I'm not talking about getting into the markets right now, but the topics that we've discussed in yesterday's video are going to stay relevant for the next few weeks. By the way, talking about entering the oil market, I actually don't think it's a good idea to enter using USO at the moment, because crude oil prices are extremely depressed and everyone knows they're not going to stay at current levels for long. So the futures prices are basically kind of sloping up the further into the future you go, from May to June to July and so on. So for an ETF like USO, rolling over into the next and more distant contracts is going to be very costly. In that video from yesterday on my channel, we've also had a look at an interesting vehicle to enter the crude oil market, which actually has shown us a positive divergence from crude oil price itself over the last few weeks. And lastly, yesterday we've also talked about oil inventories at Cushing, Oklahoma. That's the largest storage facility in the US. the inventories are not too far from capacity, so that creates a lot of volatility in crude oil. And as we discussed in yesterday's video, the spikes in oil volatility historically have been a very consistent indicator of upcoming significant gains over the next few months. So as I mentioned in an older video on crude oil that I posted on YouTube channel a few weeks ago, I am around 80% allocated in energy part of the portfolio. And although initially I did lose some on the USO trade using that other vehicle that I've just mentioned, which has been showing positive divergence from oil price over the last few weeks, I've actually recouped the losses and just entered into the profit area. So for now, that's all from me, but what I would like you to do now is go to myfinancesteacher.org to make sure you get timely updates. Have a nice day and good luck in your trades.